Hey, what's going on, guys? I've got an early copy here of the Revenger Bird Destiny Warrior Regenes Sister R here that we're going to be doing a quick unboxing and review of here for today's video. Now, this is essentially a 1/44 scale version of the Destiny Impulse Gundam R. And as you can see, just by taking a look around here on the outside of the box, we don't have much here on the outside, so we can go ahead and pop it open. This is a design that does exist in real grade form as well as master grade form, but this kit is going to be essentially like a high grade. And if you compare the design and the runners, it's a little bit different from Bandai's HD version. The design is a little bit sharper, I think, in its detail, a little bit more angular, which I actually like, and this one comes with a ton of really cool effect parts in here as well. And then one thing that we also have in here is going to be some water slide decals. As you saw at the end of the manual there, it was the decal guide. All of our decals are going to be here. It looks like mostly in white, red, and dark gray. This does include like the special markings here for this version, and I'm just not realizing I have this upside down here as well. So there you go. So you got like your Zaft markings and all of that. And yeah, then the logo markings down there. And in this bag here, we've got some pre-assembled joint parts. And so it is going to be like sort of similar to the RG in that we are going to have this frame, except instead of like pre-molded, it's just pre-assembled frame bits here. And you can see like these are for the arms, these other ones for the legs. So like for a typical kit that has a pre-assembled metal frame, it's using a mixture of like what is probably ABS plastic and die-cast metal parts there for some of the joints and all that. And so we've got quite a few of those, and those should certainly help keep the joints nice and solid, but we'll see how that goes on the construction of the kit. And aside from these other couple of clear runners that we have of effect parts, and we'll take a look through all the runners here in just a minute, then we do also have these Wing of Light effect parts here. These are quite large and have this really cool iridescent coating on there. Taking a close-up look at that, and you can see how when the light shines, they've got this like a clear pink plastic, but then it's going to shine in this really cool silver gold kind of color there. Really, really nice. We've got a few foil stickers in there as well. Looks like basically just for the eyes and a couple of camera bits there in blue, green, and red. And then we've got this awesome looking display base here, and this would be a good point to basically get into the runners now, as the display base has this really nice printing on it there. It's black with that part there printed in white, and the connection arm for the base here molded in black as well. We can check out the rest of the runners here now. And all right, so first of all, you do have another runner here, which is technically runner Y, but this is another runner here for the display base. There are obviously some support parts here in clear. Runner A here is going to be in off-white, and then runner B as well, which we have two of there, and it is a little bit slightly kind of bluish white there, sort of. Runner C is in this sort of dark magenta, and for comparison here, runner D is in this darker magenta color there for our kind of armor color. Runner E is going to be in this dark gunmetal color here for some of like the weapons parts, joint parts, hand parts, and we've got a bunch more of that here on runner E1, which is going to be some more weapons parts here. It looks like mostly we've got two of this E1 runner. Runner F is going to be here in a kind of light bluish gray color. Runner G is going to be in this orangish yellow color there. Runner H is in a shinier kind of gunmetal sort of color there, like that. And then runner H1 we have two of for some more parts there in that magenta color. Runner J here is for some more parts of the inner frame, and it does look like there's parts missing off there, but I would imagine that that's parts that are just on those pre-molded runner parts. So if you get this, you open it up and you're like, hey, I have missing parts. Those are just the parts that were cut off of here to be used for the pre-assembled joints, so don't worry. Runner I here is a small runner of a few light pink accent parts there. Runners L and L1 are some clear pink effect parts there for the beam sabers, some other bits. You have these larger effect parts here on runner L1. Those look really cool. Runner L2, however, is some more parts here in our off-white color there. Runner M we have two of for some effect parts here in blue. And then runner N1 is a couple more clear effect parts there in clear pink. And as you can tell, there's not really any rhyme or reason to the order of the colors here. They're not grouped or anything. Here's runner O1 for some more parts in dark magenta. Runner P1 here is some more parts in our lighter magenta color. Runner R1 is some parts here in light blue, and then runner R4 is one other kind of off-white part there for the waist section, it looks like. Runner S1 is some more gunmetal parts there for the joints and everything. Looks like mostly parts there for the backpack. Runner T1, a couple more parts there in gunmetal. Runner V here, a few parts there in blue. And last but not least, runner U here is a couple more parts there in that shinier gunmetal for a few little vent parts there, it looks like. And that's it for the runners, so let's go ahead and check out the kit. But alright guys, so here is how the kit is going to look straight out of the box. Now obviously, as I'm showing it to you here, just to start off the review portion of the video, there's no backpack on it. I just wanted to focus on the main body, and the backpack's kind of its own separate thing, or it can be anyway. So we'll talk about that in more detail, and all the different weapons and options and stuff that we have with that, and kind of related to that, and then just all the different accessories we have here, including hand option parts and all that good stuff here in just a second. But this kit certainly does come with a lot of options as well too, which is nice. But just for the main body here, I do really like this version of the design. I like that it's a bit more angular, a bit more blocky, kind of has a little bit sharper, more defined design, and I really like that about this version. And the colors are really nice on there as well. But we'll come back to the main kit here in just a second. Let's go ahead and talk about some of those accessories. So first of all, our display base here, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. Number one, I do like that design that's printed here on the base. Is very cool. And the way that the display base works is kind of interesting here. This smaller part of the arm, you can actually flip this part around for either like a longer or a shorter height for that. And then this basically has a couple of different slots where this will rest in, just so that will basically adjust the angle of the base, kind of depending on where you have that at. And this lever here at the back, you can pull back, and then you can adjust the height of the base there up and down. And then the top here, you push this button into one side, and then you can adjust the angle of the base there, and then push it back to the other side to lock that into place there, like so. So some kind of familiar features, but a little bit different, and I think that looks really nice. And you'll notice these holes in here, that is for our extra support arm. So you have this piece, which is made up of 3 main sections, and then this kind of clasping section there at the end. You can omit 1 or 2 of those sections to make it kind of whatever length that you need, but this will just be there to help support any larger weapons, which we kind of don't really have with this, so I don't really anticipate having to use this really for anything. And that said, they do also make a version of the Zeus silhouette, which you can use with this or with any of the kits kind of in this series, and with that much larger weapon that has, this support arm might certainly come in handy. All right, and so then as for our hand options, they're just going to be fixed pose swappable hands here. You've got a set of closed fists. You've also got this very expressive set of open hands here, very nice. And then 2 different types of weapon holding hands that we have for the left and the right side. One is going to be with the trigger finger extended, and one without. So just kind of depending on the weapons that you're holding, you can choose the right weapon holding hands there for those. And so for the weapons here, we've got just these 2 small knives. First off, these don't fold up or store anywhere on the kit, unfortunately. So these are just going to be something you can either hold in the hand, or you're just going to have to keep them off to the side. And you'll notice here on the back side of the forearm, you also have these beam saber weapons here. Kind of typically you might recognize them off the Destiny. They're stored up on the shoulder. In this case, they're stored here on the back of the arms, and this part can flip around, but I do find these to be kind of loose, that they tend to fall off there a little bit. So I would maybe recommend just putting a little glue or something on there just to make this a little bit tighter, just so these aren't falling off and getting lost. That said, if you didn't want to have these parts here on the back side of the forearm, you do have the parts to make the forearm just without this connection piece there on the back side if you preferred. For these, we have 2 different options for the beam sabers. Either you can just have this kind of typical sort of straight blade. Here it is like a thinner, and then it is wide, so it's not like perfectly cylindrical, I guess. So you can have that, or you can have this much more interesting looking kind of angled blade here like that, which again looks something more like what we would see with the Destiny Gundam typically, I think. So that does look really cool as like a kind of throwing beam saber weapon there. And on that note, we've actually got 2 of these spinning effect parts here for these. So if you wanted to display it to look like it was actually being thrown, the effect part fits onto there like that, and then you can see there's this hard point here. So this is what you can actually use that effect stand for. So even though we have 2 of these, unfortunately you only have 1 of the effect stand, but you can plug that into the bottom of here and make it look like this is actually being thrown and spinning there like that, which is pretty cool. So while we're on the topic of effect parts, we do also have 2 of these beam shield effect parts here. This is going to plug into the side of the arm. You're going to need to remove this blue piece out of there first. And you need to kind of position the arm just right, because this effect part for the shield I find is kind of a little bit too big. So it's kind of like getting in the way of the shoulder armor, and it's kind of difficult to position in a way that fits well. And then you got to put this blue piece then back over the top of that here like that. So kind of depending on the angle, like I said, you just kind of have to position it just the right way. I think they made that just like a little bit too large there, to be honest. But now here for the forearm, you do also have the option of the kind of impulse style shield here. So it's going to fit into the hand and then plug onto the forearm. So this will not work unless you remove this part here on the forearm. That said, I feel like if you just kind of remove this connection piece here and then just use the handle, it probably will be okay. This is going to work normally, as this will expand there at the top and the bottom bottom like so, and then the sides will expand out here as well. You kind of have to do it all manually here. Nothing's like geared together, but there's the expanded form of the shield there. It looks really nice with those colors there, I think. So it looks really good. And then we do also have the regular beam rifle here as well. So just all molded in this dark gray color. This does have a camera on the top that can move from side to side, and the secondary handle here at the front that you can use, that does not move or anything, but you will notice it does have a peg here on this side, and that is to store it here on the back skirt. You can just plug it right onto there when not in use. So that works pretty well. So okay, we're ready for the backpack then. So you'll notice where the backpack is going to plug in right here onto the back of the body. And then here's how I've got the backpack set up here just to start us off. But as I said, we do have some different options here with this. So looks really nice. You can see there's those metal parts in here for the frame, as we've got a bunch of metal parts here inside the kit. We'll talk some more about that here in just a second. But some really nice detail here with like that bird head design that it's got going on there for the backpack. So you could have this on its own just as a separate flyer. There is a hard point here on the bottom to be able to connect this onto the display stand if you wanted to. And then of course the wings will open up, and we've got those massive wing of light effect parts as you saw in the unboxing portion of the video, and we'll see how these are going to look on there in just a moment. But these are not only very large, but I just really love the iridescent coating on there, so those are going to look great. But we've got a couple of different options for the armaments here on the backpack. So right now I have these large cannons which are connected onto these movable like arms there, so you can move those around, and those then can also be removed off of there entirely just to be handheld, as here on the bottom they just have a handle that will fold out there like that, and then you've just got these two handheld long kind of cannon rifles here. So those are really nice, but instead of these, you can like swap a part here. That will be that part there in the center, which has these hard points on it there on the side. And that's where we can mount these cannons, which we also have two of here like that. And these are pretty cool as they're attached up on the backpack. They have this connection arm that will allow them to move up over the shoulders, for example. But if we remove that part here off the bottom, there we go, like that, then these also have a handle that will fold down like so, and the barrel does extend. So these make for some really cool long rifles there as well that you can use. So you've got a couple different options there for that. And so if you're using these on the backpack, that also frees up space here on the backpack to also mount this set of large swords here. So you've got two of them that will be mounted onto the backpack, and we of course have effect parts for these as well. So once these are removed like from the backpack and held in hand, here's how these massive swords are going to look. And of course, because it's Gundam Seed, naturally the two of these swords can fit together end to end like that to make an even longer double-ended sword. And we'll take a look at all of this stuff in use here in just a moment once we take a look at the kit in some different poses. So there is certainly no shortage of options here that you can use with this, and just kind of different ways. So here is a look at just kind of the size of this. As you can see, just compared to the main body, it's going to be quite long. And while we're on that note, just to give you guys a sense of the size of it, it's going to be about a little over 5 inches in height. It's very standard HG size here for this, so 1/44 scale does seem to be very accurate. In centimeters, is coming up to about 14 centimeters there. And so I think that's basically it for all of the accessories here. There's a lot and a lot of different ways to use them, which I'll show you in a moment. But just to talk a little bit more about the kit here, aside from those parts in the back of the forearm being a little bit testy and wanting to fall off, those beam saber handles there, the rest of the kit does feel very solid thanks to that metal inner frame, which you can see poking out at some of the joints there, which does add a nice bit of detail. That said, the kit does not have a lot of exterior surface detail, so it doesn't, even though it like feels like an HG, even though it sort of feels like an RG just because it has that full inner frame, the exterior still looks very much like an HG, which I really like. I like the look of this, I like the design of it, but some people might want something a little bit more detailed, something more like the RG kit. Unfortunately, this does not have that in terms of just like the exterior detail, and really only a couple of stickers here for like the eyes and the head camera, which is pretty normal for, again, like an HG style kit, is being just like an HG with a full metal inner frame essentially. So you'll see the articulation in full as we take a look at some poses here in just a minute. But a couple of things that I will point out to you guys is that the neck joint is a double joint, which will allow for a pretty full bend up to the front there like that, which is pretty nice. And then the torso kind of chest is really nice as well. As you'll notice here, when we do our ab crunch, it doesn't actually bend in the middle of the abs, which is kind of normal, but the whole like chest part there rotates forward a bit, which you can see is kind of interesting. It's certainly very unique, kind of different way of crunching there at the front than what we're typically used to. So that's interesting. Otherwise, the elbow joints and knee joints are going to be double joints, which give you pretty full bends there as well, like so. And then for the knee as well, like that. No separation of this knee armor, as that's just connected to like the lower leg there, but a really nice range of motion. The feet as well, the front of the foot is separated, so you can have a separate toe bend there, up and down from the rest of the foot, which does have a nice range on its own there. And then up underneath, you'll see the connection to the base actually uses kind of two slots there, this kind of circle peg, which I would imagine would work perfectly well with like a Bandai action base as well if you wanted to, but then also has this additional extra little tab there as well, which would be really useful because sometimes if it's only a circle peg, what you can have happen if you have the kit at an angle, if it's more weighted to one side than another, it will just turn on the base and you have a hard time keeping it straight. So that extra little tab on there will help to keep it straight on the base, even if you have it like kind of not balanced left to right in terms of the weight of accessories on it, which we do have a lot of accessories here, so it's nice. And so, all right guys, trying out the kit here in a few different poses just to wrap up the review. If you are unaware, there's actually a number of different versions of this kit that have just recently come out. So there's this version, there's the Blanche version, which is kind of like the all white version. There's also just like a version that's just based on just kind of the regular Destiny. And then there's the Heine Westenflus's color version of the Destiny, the orange color version. And then, as I mentioned, there's also the Zeus silhouette, which is available as well. So it was just kind of random that the Regenes is the version that I got just for a sample to build and review and share with you guys here. But actually, it's probably the one that I would have chosen, either this or the Blanche, just in terms of the design. I do really like the design of this. If you guys remember, I do believe I reviewed the master grade version of the Blanche at one point a few years ago when that first came out. And anyway, it's just a version of the Impulse Gundam that I do really like. So really happy with this. And as I mentioned, I do really like the design of this. It may not have as much exterior detail as some people might like, but I really like this. It's kind of like a style that I really like. I like HG in terms of like the surface detail and the color separation and everything like that, but it has just really nice, sharp details and edges and everything, which I think looks really good. And we've just got a ton of different accessories. So not only are there multiple versions of this kit, but in any of the versions, you've got all these different accessories that you can use for the backpack, different type of weapons and all this stuff. So even with just getting one kit of this series, you've got a ton of stuff to work with. But if you got a couple of kits from this series, and of course they are rather affordable, so I could definitely see fans of these kits wanting to get more than one. Like if you got this as well as like the regular Destiny or the Heine Westenflus color version, something like that, and then you have the Zeus silhouette. So I mean, between multiple kits, if you got multiple of these, you would have a lot of different options to work with in terms of how you wanted to pose and how you wanted to outfit their weapons and all that. So pretty cool kits, and quite impressed with just the overall quality as well. Really nice. I love all the effect parts, are really cool. I would do wish the beam shields were a little bit smaller, them being as large as they are. They're a little bit difficult to pose, but otherwise all the beam effect parts, and then of course the wing of light effect parts look amazing, so those are awesome. We've got a really nice display base there as well with this, with the kind of painted design on that already right out of the box is really cool. And yeah, and then on top of all of that, we do also have the water slide decals in the box as well, which obviously I don't have the decals on here yet, but you know, you do have those included as you saw in the unboxing portion of the video. So yeah, there's really a lot to like about this set. I can definitely recommend it to you guys. Definitely check it out. If you guys want to check out this kit or any of the other Revenger Bird series, you can check the link in the video description to a Set Gundam store. As I said, we just got these in, so they should all be available there on the site for you if you've not ordered them already. So yeah, check those out there on the site. The link is down below. And as always, guys, thanks so much for checking out the video here today. Hope you enjoyed it. Feel free to leave a like there if you did, and also subscribe if you're not yet subscribed. I really appreciate your guys' support. Thank you so much. Until next time, hope y'all are doing well. See y'all later. Bye, guys.